I'm really glad to be done with this video. I originally decided to make it. I was making another video and decided to take a break from that to make this one about Stormgate. And I was like, this is no big deal. I'll just talk about some of my thoughts about the Stormgate campaign. The video will be maybe 20 minutes long. I'll be able to edit everything in a weekend. And I was wrong. The video is now about 15 minutes long, and it wound up taking longer to actually make the whole thing because of a few issues. One, the original audio of my voice, or the audio you're going to hear in a second, I recorded it on different days because that's just how my schedule worked out. And the audio quality is different on those different days. And then I tried to fix that. I tried to edit that and fix it and make all the audio sound the same, and then I made it just sound worse. Then I was editing the game footage, and I noticed that the video and audio footage from the game had a lot of stuttering and jerkiness in it, which was weird because the game ran fine when I was playing it. When I was actually capturing the footage, the game ran smoothly. But I just didn't have the time, and I don't have the time to troubleshoot what the issue is, fix it, and then re-record all the footage. So it's going in. So if you see a lot of stuttering in the game footage or the game audio, don't judge the game. It ran fun when I played it. And if the audio quality of my voice is bad or inconsistent, I don't know, just bear with me. I'm doing my best. Maybe I'm doing my best. Who knows? Alright, so there's an opening cutscene. I don't really feel like talking about it. It's the one that came out a few months ago. Just the first Stormgate getting opened up, whatever. Then we see a title card. It says 20 years later, and we see another cinematic. And this is kind of the one I want to talk about. And one of the things that I noticed was the animation, the rigging is, I think, well done. I think the characters move in a very kind of naturalistic way. And I think the camera work, kind of how they're simulating or recreating the kind of shaky cam style you might see in a film or a TV show. I think it's really well done, which I think is all good, except it doesn't fit with the character models. And I don't want to rag on the character models or how the faces look weird or anything like that. I don't think that's really that important, but it doesn't fit. The visual style doesn't fit with the kind of filming style. So shaky cam, the kind of shaky cam style they're using, it's usually used in films to give a more gritty or realistic feeling to a movie or to create a greater sense of energy in a scene. But it just seems out of place, this kind of more gritty and real camera style that's showing us very unreal and cartoonish characters. I feel like it doesn't fit. It sort of has an almost uncanny valley effect on me. And that's pretty much it. I'll move on to the next thing. So the first level is a no-build mission. You just control one character, Amara, and she doesn't even start off with any special abilities. And I don't even like no-build missions in RTS games in general. If I'm playing an RTS game, I want to play an RTS, I want to control units, I want to control armies. Some of this footage will illustrate what's ridiculous about no-build missions, especially with just one unit, and that is I just have to kite all the enemies. And all this footage is coming from hard difficulty. But even on normal difficulty, it's just annoying to have to kite these enemies because that's it. There's no strategy, there's no tactics. You just kite them. That's it. You do throughout this level, you find logs and journals, which I think is neat. I like that. You can read them, but when you click on them, they go away. The little text box will go away, and I don't know if I can get that back. I didn't see where I could look through a log of the ones that I had already found. It wasn't a big deal, but kind of wish I could go back and look at some of them. There is one journal as you're moving through, and it's someone's angry that the bad raiders stole their chickens. Isn't that silly? And then you move a little further, and you get a little cutscene where a two-headed ogre is capturing humans with a bunch of raiders, and the two heads of the ogre, they take turns talking. Isn't that silly? It's supposed to be lighthearted and funny, I guess, but it honestly just feels very much like something ripped from Warcraft 3. These are straight up ogres from Warcraft 3, and then on top of that, the scavengers or the raiders or whatever they are, they're supposed to be kind of apocalyptic Mad Max style bad guys, but they look like orcs. They look like they're dressed like orcs with like the bones and the tusks or whatever on their helmets or shoulder pads or whatever. They look like orcs, so it makes it even feel more like it's Warcraft 3. And then right after the ogres are done having their funny little talk between the two heads, the main character comments on the humans that are working with the ogres, the demons, I guess, and it refers to them as Scavneger Filth, which seems like, it just seems weird. We just had this silly moment about, the person wrote a journal about a chicken getting stolen, and then the ogres are having a little silly little conversation between the two heads, and then all of a sudden, like, you get this kind of intense kind of insult coming from the main character, just this venom, this anger, and just feels out of place with the kind of goofiness of the rest of what's going on. Anyway, after this, you can go through some trees, and you meet the person who lost their chicken, and then you can go further ahead, and you can find the chicken and bring the chicken back to the person right after the main character is complaining about the Scavneger Filth that is working with the demons. I don't know, the tone's all over the place. Amara, chill out with the language. Your head is as big as your torso. You've got no business calling someone else names. Honestly, by this point, kind of criticism aside, I think so far it's actually done a decent job of the setting. Yeah, just the setting. We kind of get the idea that people are living on the kind of edge of survival, trying to make do with small shacks and small farms, and they're being preyed upon by demons and raiders and stuff. So I think so far it actually does a pretty good job. Even the characters, we get a pretty decent idea of who the characters are. Amara is impetuous and short-tempered. I don't know why, but she is. She's kind of quick to anger, quick to get violent. Again, I don't know why. That has not been established why she's like that. It does seem to come out of left field, like I said in that one example just now. But it's pretty clear what kind of person she is. Barkley, the other character, he seems like a good guy you can trust. He seems like a good guy. He cares about people, but he also respects command. He's just a good guy. And then there's a third character named Ryker, and he is a sniper. And that's it so far. He's a guy that snipes things, and that's it. At a certain point, you unlock the teleport ability with Amara, and if you were paying attention earlier in the level, there is a collectible item on top of a waterfall that you couldn't reach. And so if you're paying attention and thinking about it, you'll realize you can go back and use teleport to get to the top of the waterfall and get that item. There's a lot of moments like that throughout all the levels where there's like hidden nooks and crannies or little areas where you can get extra items or whatever, or like data logs or journal entries. I'm not going to really talk about them from this point on. I just felt like mentioning this one and just that there's a lot of these, and I liked it. It was nice to find all these little collectible secrets, and some of them not even that secret, but it was nice. By the end of this map, you get a choice, and you're told you can go north to do one thing, south to do one thing. But the problem is, I didn't pay attention to the dialogue when the characters were talking about it. And then the mission objective doesn't tell you which one's which. So you kind of have to just guess, north or south. You don't know really which one is which. North is actually to go after the caravan that's taking prisoners and rescue them. South is to go and attack the base camp that the raiders are using. This choice will, depending on which direction you go in, you'll load another map. And the problem here I had was there's no save. The campaign doesn't have the ability to save or pause, which is really annoying because I kept wanting to pause to take notes. And there's just, the pause doesn't work. It's like it's a PvP map or something. And then there's no saved games. There's technically checkpoints, but you can't even load them, not even from the menu. You have to kill yourself to load a checkpoint, and who knows where it even is. So that was just really annoying, especially at a point like where there's this choice, and normally I would save here, do one choice, go back and try the other one to see what's going on. But not the case here. So I'm showing footage from going south. That's the part of the mission I chose. And that takes you to this kind of swampy area where the raiders have made a, I guess, temporary base with a bunch of tents and whatnot. And you just go through and you kill them. The reason I'm bringing this up is for, at the very end, there's a little cutscene. And there's this really weird bit of dialogue that I just thought was funny and odd, and I'm going to play it now.
Hate when it comes to this. We should be fighting for humanity.
We are. This one picked the wrong side.
Commander?
You all picked the wrong side.
Give me a break. Earth don't belong to humans no more. We gotta survive any way we can.
Good point. Tell us what we want to know. Maybe you'll survive.
Good point. Good point. This is a very weird line to me. I mean, part of it is the voice acting delivery, but I think part of it is just the writing too, because it's just such a weird way for her to respond in that situation. Like, the guy does give his reasoning for, being a traitor or whatever exact, but when she initially talks to him, she's so angry. It seems like she's not going to listen to reason at all. Like, that's the level of anger it seems to be. She's ready to kill this guy, and this guy just like says his thing, and then she's like, good point. I guess you'll live. Like, you're a traitor. You're a traitor. I'm gonna kill you. And then the other guy's like, well, have you considered give me a break? Oh, good point. It's just very, it is bad writing, and I think that's accentuated by the particular choice in how to deliver the lines, but it is bad writing, but that's not why I'm bringing it up. I'm just bringing it up because it's so weird. It just stuck in my head. That's it. Moving on. So we go to level 2, and we transition to a desert tile set. I actually really like this. I like the visual design of this map with the ruined skyscrapers dotted around the landscape, forming these corridors through the level. I think it looks really good, and I think it works well for like creating the type of play space for your units to go through. Also worth noting, I didn't get footage of this, but in the previous level you have these two choices. You can go north or south. If you go south, which I showed, there's just more forests and kind of swampy areas. But if you go north, you're following the caravan that's coming back to the bandits' like main base. It's more desert-like. Like, it transitions from the forest of the main level to the more a desert-like setting because you're headed here. And I think that's actually a really nice bit of consistent world building they did in the last level to prep for this level. But anyway, I guess now is also a good time to mention I actually like the art in general of the game. I know a lot of people rag on the art and complain about the art. Aside from the kind of cartoon style not fitting the tone of the cinematics and the dialogue, I think the art's really nice. It's clean, it's crisp, it's clear, it pops out, it's easy to see things and tell things apart. I think this level is a good example of good art, partially because it's a desert and it's all kind of brown and orange, but they do a good job of creating visual variety here. And then also, like I said, I like the skyscraper design, the post-apocalyptic setting, and how that kind of creates a vibe, a kind of really interesting feeling. I also think that with these two levels, they do a good job of establishing the setting, this post-apocalyptic war that's taking place. And I think you've got the first level with this kind of wet, deciduous forest with people living in shacks and having farms and trying to scrape by. And then here in this level, you see the flip side of that. You see the devastation, the destruction on the planet, and you see, the bandits or the raiders living in these camps. So I think that these first two levels do a good job kind of conveying to you what kind of a world is happening here. In terms of the gameplay of the level itself, I'm now having fun. The previous level, I was kind of bored because it's a no-build mission. There's not much to do. It's pretty linear. But here, now that I'm finally doing some RTS gameplay, I'm having a lot of fun. It's really responsive. The animations are really nice. It's all pretty good. So the premise of this level is that we are following the bandits back to this base, and they're working with the demons, so we're getting attacked by demons and whatnot. You find some stuff. There's some journal entries. There's some nice barrel set pieces where you encounter a group of enemies and they're near some explosive barrels, and if you shoot them, you do a lot of damage to the enemies. And I think that's always fun in any game, whether it's RTS, FPS, whatever. It's always fun when level designers put that kind of stuff in there that you can take advantage of the environmental hazards. And as you're going up, there's a little vignette where you see a dropship taking prisoners up to, taking them away, taking them to another base, and that plays in the next level. There's nothing big about that, just it's a nice little touch in the level. And by the end, you do destroy the demon camp, and you find this magical blade, and already you can tell that the plot is going in the direction that Amara is going to be Arthas from World of Warcraft, or not World of Warcraft, from Warcraft 3, which isn't great. But ultimately, I had fun. It's a really easy level, but I had fun doing it.
Red right hand.
No way we go against Malak and win.
We gotta get this thing out of here. Commander?
Yeah. Time to go. Warhawks, let's mount up!
All those prisoners. We lost them for this?
We move on to level 3, and we start off with some commando units called infiltrators that can capture enemy buildings. Like, you use one to capture a building and then they're gone. And once you capture the first base, it basically becomes a kind of standard real-time strategy level after that, which I like. This is probably one of my favorite levels too. Periodically, the enemy will send waves of units at you, and those waves are shown on the minimap, which is nice, so you can actually prepare. In terms of the story, we're here to rescue a bunch of prisoners, especially one prisoner who happens to know more information about the magical blade we found. And I've got to say, so far, the part that I enjoy about the narrative is these are mostly just kind of small tactical missions. They're the kind of missions you'd expect a human resistance on a planet that's been invaded, doing these small tactical missions to kind of chip away at the enemy's strength a little bit at a time. And so I really like that aspect of the story so far. Unfortunately, after this, it becomes more of like a grand fantasy. I don't like that direction it winds up taking, but so far, mostly doing kind of small tactical missions. And I kind of feel that would fit with the kind of structure of the levels better, right? We've got chapters that are 3 missions each, and it feels like a story, a smaller scale story of the resistance movement. Feels like that would fit more with the kind of structure of the level releases that they're planning. But whatever, enough about that. Like I said, this mission is mostly a standard RTS mission, but it does a couple things that I really like. So before I get into that, let me say one thing that I don't like: excessively scripted or gimmicky mechanics in RTS games. In general, I don't like that in any kind of game, but especially RTS games. I prefer to just play the RTS. If the gameplay and mechanics are good enough, I just want to play the RTS. I think that's a good time. One of the things I didn't like about Wings of Liberty when it came out is it felt like every single level was some sort of gimmick. It was like it had all this scripted events and special mechanics just for that level. And it really kind of annoyed me because it felt like they weren't confident in the gameplay standing out on its own. And so it was like they felt they had to add like all these gimmicky aspects to the game to each level. You know, lava is rising on this level. On this level, you gotta chase down a train. On this level, another thing's happening, you know? What I like about these two things that are happening, these two unique things that happen in this level is one doesn't have any scripting at all, and one has minimal. So let me talk about the first thing, which is that you can actually get access to a higher tier units than you can normally produce in this level. So you start off with these infiltrator units that can capture buildings, and you can't build any more of them. So whatever you get, that's what you've got. Then later on in the level, there is an expansion you can kind of expand to that has Therium, the secondary resource, and it's got some enemy buildings in it. And one of those enemy buildings is the mech bay, I think it's called, and that can produce Vulcans and hedgehogs. And Vulcans are those kind of Gundam mech looking guys. And you can't produce those units either. So you can't produce the infiltrators, you can't produce any mech units. But if you're paying attention, you can grab that enemy mech bay with one of your infiltrators if you keep them alive, and then you have access to those units. And what I like about this is there's nothing that's telegraphed. The game isn't like holding your hand telling you that this is what you can do. There's no like secondary or bonus objective that pops up that tells you you can do this. It just relies on you as the player understanding the systems of the game and then paying attention to what's taking place on the level and trusting you to figure that out on your own. The first time I played this, I actually did capture the mech bay just because I had infiltrators there at the time, but then I didn't realize that I didn't have access to those nudes. Normally I'm like, oh, I don't have to really protect that building. I'll just rebuild it in my main base if it ever gets destroyed. And then it did get destroyed. And then it clicked because I was like looking, how do I build that building? And I'm like, oh no, I can't. And I think maybe part of that is because a lot of the Vanguard buildings look very similar, especially in the build queue tab. But yeah, I realized that I couldn't do it. And then I was like, okay, on my next playthrough, I have to get that building again. And I have to protect it, and I did, and it was really fun. It was this neat reward for coming up with a strategy myself to use the game systems to get this extra thing. It's just solid campaign design. The second thing that this level does is you can, and it takes a little bit of scripting, but honestly it's so little, I'm pretty sure you could have done this in this original StarCraft engine with just triggers. But basically if you take out these side bases, you'll rescue these prisoners, and these prisoners turn into exos, the machine gun soldier. And they will be a kind of NPC units that are allied with you, and then they will attack the enemy in waves. And what I like about this is it's not really restrictive. Like, you don't have to go with these waves. Like, if they take too much damage, they will retreat until they heal up again and then go back. So you don't have to babysit them. You don't have to force yourself to attack when they attack. You can just continue playing the level however you want. And if you want, you can definitely time your attack with their attack to try to maximize your damage on the enemy. But it's just a neat extra thing in the level that takes very little scripting, that doesn't interfere with how you want to play the game, but can enhance how you play the game if you choose to take advantage of it. The one downside, I would say, the one con, is these NPC Marines will keep attacking the enemy, and I'm pretty sure that the friendly NPC Marines, they can actually make progress in destroying the enemy base. And I think in one of my playthroughs, one of the NPCs, they kept hitting the enemy with waves and ended up actually destroying one of the enemy bases that I needed to destroy without me even participating in the attack. And that's kind of cool, but I think it's also a little bit frustrating because it takes away your own personal enjoyment of doing that yourself, of accomplishing the mission objectives yourself. I wonder if you just stood back, even on hard difficulty, this was the case, and I didn't test this out, but I wonder if you just did nothing, would these NPC waves manage to beat the level for you? I'm not sure. It's possible, but that's the one downside to it, is they can kind of take away the point of the player playing the game themselves. Anyway, you do beat the level. There's like a little boss battle at the end of the level. You rescue this character called Suyin. She's barefoot for some reason, and I don't like her dialogue at all. I don't like how her dialogue is written, and I don't like how her dialogue is voice acted. It really annoys me. In my opinion, this is the worst character in the game, just because of the dialogue. Anyway, so we move on to level 4. Before we get to that, there's a little cinematic, and one thing I'll point out is this bit of very cringy dialogue. It genuinely makes me groan. Here it is. It's from Suyin.
Oh, baby! An XF-850 Manticore drill! Where have you been all my life?
Yeah, where has it been all her life? I hate this dialogue because it's such a cliche. I mean, how many times have you heard some character in an action movie or a cartoon or a video game go like, oh, a tank or a rocket launcher or whatever, where have you been all my life? I've heard it 900 million times already in my life, and I'm sick of hearing it. I don't like this line because it's a cliche, and I don't like the way it's voice acted either. It just makes it even more, it just makes me groan out loud. However, there's also a good thing that happens in this cutscene. It's this right here. I'll play it right now.
I am tired of running. Aren't you? That's all we've done. for 20 years. But this weapon will change everything. I don't expect you to understand.
So this is clearly supposed to be some kind of symbolic representation of something. Maybe this represents what's really going on in Amara's head, even though it's different from what she's telling Barkley, right? It might represent how she's lying to him, or it might represent what she really wants, even though she doesn't realize it. But it is a genuinely good bit of non-verbal cinematic language, non-verbal storytelling. Clearly, Amara, her real motivation, she just wants to steal this power from this demon. That's her real motivation for doing this. And if you see in the this cinematic, she's like the demon. She's standing in a kind of destroyed, fiery landscape, representing the fact that really she's not going to become anything different. She's not any different from this demon with this desire to get this weapon. It's a good bit of cinematic storytelling, completely undercut by the goofy models and just the goofy faces that do not fit the kind of seriousness of this scene. These models look like they would be more from a comedic kind of story, but this is played straight, played serious, and it doesn't fit together. It stands out in a negative way against each other. The kind of very competent cinematic direction, and then the goofy, unserious characters. There's one other part of this cinematic, this intro cinematic to level 4, that I wanted to show. Ryker, the sniper guy, he basically isn't trusting Amara to handle the situation, so he's called in reinforcements. We get this bit of dialogue.
I never gave that order.
No, but you should have. We need reinforcements.
You're out of line, soldier.
This infernal attack was inevitable. Amara's reckless behavior has become a liability. HQ knows it, and I think you know it too.
I don't care what you think. You're not the commander.
Enough. Barkley, we need to buy time for Suyin to start the drill.
And I'm not going to say anything about it right now. I just want you to keep that in mind for later. On to level 4 proper. This is a solid defense mission. You just defend against a bunch of waves of enemies. Normally, I don't really like wave defense missions, but this one's actually pretty good. At the start, they give you a little tutorial about how you can put a worker inside a bunker, and then it will be able to long-range repair other buildings or mech units, which is great because the rest of the level makes that ability, makes that mechanic super useful and just pretty much necessary to keep your base alive and keep your mech units alive. So I really don't have much to say about this. It's just a solid wave defense mission. There's a few extra things you can do if you explore a little bit, and they tell you to do this, but if you explore a little bit, you will find some broken down Vulcan mechs, and you can repair them, but they're not regular Vulcan mechs, they're flamethrower mechs, which is nice. Who doesn't like a level that gives you these kind of special units that are campaign only units that are maybe a little bit overpowered. In another part of the level, you can repair some rocket tanks or rocket jeeps or something. They're also a type of, they look like campaign only vehicles that you can't build yourself. Really nice touch there. It's worth mentioning that during the mission, the reinforcements that Ryker called, they get shot down in the middle of the mission. I think you can save them. I think those are the rocket tanks that you can rescue. I think those are the reinforcements maybe. And then at the end of the mission, I'll play this cutscene, but at the end of the mission, we find out that another ship of reinforcements was shot down. I'll play it now.
Mayday! Mayday! This is Ranger 3. We've been hit! Going down!
hostile territory.
You called in reinforcements over enemy airspace, and you call me reckless?
I was trying to. We can't just leave him.
Get him out of there. And Terra, get me through that door. That's it! We're through! Time to go. Barkley, hold the line till I'm back.
We have a distress beacon on the edge of my scanning range. Another transport must have gone down.
This is my mess. I'll find them.
You do that. And when you're done, find yourself a different crew.
Copy that.
So as you can see, Ryker, so far this little subplot is that Ryker didn't trust Amara. He calls down some reinforcements. The reinforcements get shot down. He recognizes that he messed up, and then he voluntarily offers to go and fix his mistake. So keep that in mind for later. That's going to come back into play in level 6, mission 6. Alright, on to level 5. It's another no-build mission. And like I said, I don't like no-build missions. You know, I'm playing an RTS. I want to do some real-time strategying. Yeah. So you just control Amara. That's the only unit you have throughout the whole thing. The whole mission is a bunch of separate maps, and you transition from one map to another, and it's all in these caves. It's okay. At the end of each map, there's these 3 orbs that show up, and you can pick one of them. And each one, whichever one you pick, it permanently increases one of your stats. Like, for just this mission, I believe. It's just this mission. Increase of movement speed, or attack damage, or attack range. That sort of stuff. And after each map you do this. And it's kind of neat. But I didn't come here to play an RPG. I didn't come here to play a roguelike. You know? That's not what I'm here for. I want to command armies and have them fight other armies and destroy buildings and stuff. But okay, I'm going to go on a little rant with an example. Let's say you're Coca-Cola, the soft drink company, right? You make Coca-Cola. I don't want you to sell me a cheeseburger. That's not what I come to you for. I come to you for Coca-Cola or some other soft drink you might make. Don't try to sell me office furniture. Don't try to sell me computer keyboards. Don't try to sell me steering wheels for cars. You're Coca-Cola. You make Coca-Cola. That's what I want. That's what you're good at. That's what you do. That's what you're known for. That's what I want from you. So with Frost Giant, I came here because I want an RTS. I want a real-time strategy game. So don't offer me a cheeseburger. That's not what I want, right? I don't want an RPG. I don't want a hack and slash dungeon crawler. What I want is an RTS because that's what you do. That's what you're known for. That's what you're good at. I know you are because I just played 2 missions back to back that I really liked, that I thought were solid real-time strategy missions with good design, with good like extra little bits of flavor or mechanics or things to find. That's what you do.
Figure out what you do! You had all summer to think of it.
Just stick to the thing that you're solid at. Stick to the thing that you're good at. That's what I want. Okay, rant over. There are some enemy encounters, and you can see that the developers, they try to add these kind of extra mechanics and telegraph the attacks of some of these enemies. It's largely pretty boring, though. I don't find it very interesting. One nice thing is that there's a bonus objective where you can find these tablets, the ancient tablets, that convey a little bit of backstory. They're kind of hidden in little off the beaten path kind of areas, and I like that. I always like looking for secrets in video games, whatever type of video game it is, so that was fun, even though it was very simple. At one point, you enter a room and it says you're going to face your greatest enemy there. And then you fight, basically Amara fights a shadow version of herself and defeats it in this cave. I wonder, that sounds kind of familiar. I wonder where I've heard that before. At the end of the mission, you do another boss battle. You get all 5 blades of this weapon and you fight the mean demon guy. It's a boss battle. I don't really like boss battles in RTSs. And this is the only time where the game was actually genuinely lagging for me. And I would try to like scroll the screen. I would try to move the screen and it would just scroll way too far because of the lag. But I beat it on my first time, even on hard. That's it. Not much else to say about this one. It's just a big no-build mission. Okay, so before we get into Mission 6, there is a little cutscene at the beginning that I want to play. And one thing I'll say is I think Barclay, I think this character has the best writing and the best voice acting, in my opinion. He's probably the most likable character, and I would prefer a story focused on him rather than Amara. You know, maybe that's just me. But that's also, that's just a side note, because that's not even the thing I want you to pay attention to. The thing I want you to pay attention to is what they say about Ryker.
Commander, can I have a word? I'm sorry. I gotta ask. What's your objective here? Saving Ryker or killing Malak?
I'm getting real tired of defending my orders. You listen and listen.
No, damn it. You listen. Ryker was right. You've become reckless, and he's paying the price for it right now.
Our objective is winning this war.
Okay, so Barclay says that Ryker is paying the price for Amara's recklessness. Except that doesn't match what we've seen so far, and it doesn't even match the way all the characters have been acting up to this point. Back in the desert, Ryker, because he doesn't trust Amara, he calls in reinforcements, right? He goes over her head and doesn't obey her orders, and he gets these reinforcements shot down. And then he acknowledges that. He acknowledges that he's the one that made the mistake. It wasn't Amara's recklessness that made him do that. He made that mistake himself. And then he volunteers to go rescue that downed reinforcement. He volunteers to do that. Amara doesn't make him do that. And then he's now trapped or something, or he's behind enemy lines, and he needs to be rescued by Amara and Barclay. But it doesn't make sense for Barclay to be saying that he's paying the price for Amara's recklessness, because nothing up to this point has given us that impression. So far, everything that's up to this point has given us the impression that it's Riker's own fault that he's gotten into this trouble. It's his own fault that he went over Amara's head, so it doesn't fit with what's happened just 2 levels earlier. This is just kind of a good example of the kind of disconnect that's happening in a lot of the writing I'm seeing. I'm not going to nitpick everything, but this example seemed really to stand out to me, because it's supposed to be a big character moment, I think. Now we get to the final mission, Mission 6. I hated this level. Normal difficulty, hard difficulty, I beat it on both, and I didn't like it. So if you recall earlier in this video, I said I don't like heavily scripted RTS missions with like gimmicky mechanics and stuff. This level, Mission 6, is the epitome of that. There's 3 main things going on with this mission. There's these 5 weather machines that exist. They're basically capture points. It's like zone capture, area capture. If you don't capture them, the enemy will, after a certain time, just insta-kill your whole base. Your whole base just gets destroyed and you lose. So you have to capture those. Then, on low ground, there's tornadoes that are sweeping across the ground that will suck up units and do damage to them. And then when you're on high ground, your units will trigger lightning strikes, so you have to keep moving them to avoid getting hit by lightning. And this whole level was just an absolute nightmare for me. The weather machines and the insta-death loss condition is just really annoying. Every other mission, when I first played them on normal, I beat them the first time around. This Mission 6 is the one where I lost like 2 or 3 times in a row. Honestly, wouldn't even be that big of a problem if it wasn't for the 2 other mechanics. First of all, the lightning. The lightning is awful. When your units are on high ground, they attract lightning, and it does telegraphic. There's like this kind of blue glow under your units when lightning's about to strike, and you've got about like a good, 3 seconds to get out of the way. The problem is, this directly conflicts with RTS gameplay, because with an RTS, you're controlling groups of units that have different movement speeds. And when you're up on this high ground with these groups of units, the units in the front of the group are triggering lightning strikes that are then going to hit the units in the back of your group. Basically, it means you have to babysit those units while they're on high ground, because if you just leave them standing there, they will be killed by the constant lightning strikes. It's awful. When you do use control groups, when you have an army, it's almost impossible to not take damage when you get up to high ground. The other thing are the tornadoes. I don't think they're as bad as the lightning, but they're still pretty bad. So there's these tornadoes that just move along these paths on the low ground. The one nice thing is that they will pull in enemy units and do damage to them. That's pretty cool. Too bad there's not many uses for that. There's very few situations where you could kite enemies into the tornadoes. It's mostly you having to, again, if your units are on high ground, you got to babysit them. If they're on low ground, you got to babysit them because of the tornadoes. There is a bonus objective where you can, and the bonus objective is pretty cool because you drop a bunch of like sensors on the ground in the path of a tornado, and when the tornado pulls them in and sucks them up, those sensors gather data on the tornadoes, and once you get 100% data, then it shows you all the tornadoes on the map. Now the actual like mechanic of dropping these sensors and seeing the physics of them as they actually get pulled in by this cyclone, that's pretty cool. But the reward is kind of pointless for two reasons. One, you're on a time limit because of these weather machines and this insta-kill mechanic, so you're probably not going to do this side mission until that's taken care of. And then, even when you can see all the tornadoes after you complete this side objective, it doesn't matter. The problem with the tornadoes isn't that I don't know where they are. Knowing where they all are doesn't help me avoid them. It's just a constant parade of tornadoes across low ground. I don't care where they are. They're everywhere. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't even help me. It's just a neat little bit of scripting, I guess. And that's it. And ultimately, all those three things worked in such a way that I just kept losing. And I didn't know what to do. I would take my armies out to try to capture these points, and they would just keep getting hit by tornadoes or lightning or whatever, unless I completely focused on them, and then I was not focusing on my base or not focusing on the hero I would send out to capture another thing. I went on the Discord and basically found out that everyone just solos this mission with the hero. They don't even take an army. And then I tried that, and the first time around I beat the mission. And yeah, you can just solo the whole mission using Amara by herself and not using any of your units, not even building or researching tech or constructing buildings or anything like that. There's three enemy bases. The one you have to beat at the end of the mission to win, but then there's two side bases, and when you capture a weather machine, those side bases will send enemies to recapture that weather machine back. But you can just, with Amara, by herself, you can just go into those bases and solo them and destroy them. And that's it. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You can solo the entire mission, even the final base and the final boss battle, with just Amara. I don't think that I'm being unfair when I say that if you design an RTS level in which you don't have to build an army, you don't have to research tech, you don't have to build buildings or even gather resources, you can just solo the whole mission with one hero unit, I think it's fair to say that you have failed to make a real-time strategy level. I think that's fair to say. And this is functionally another no-build mission. 3 of the 6 missions in these 2 chapters, these 2 campaign chapters you get if you backed on Kickstarter or whatever, 3 of them are RTS missions, and 3 of them are no-build missions. That seems wrong. That seems like that ratio shouldn't be the case. At the end of the level, you can take your units to help Amara to attack this final enemy base. You cannot do the boss battle with your units. You have to do just with Amara, because if you bring in any other units, the boss will create a whole bunch of area effect explosions or attacks that just decimate your whole army. So there's no point in bringing them. You just bring in Amara to fight the battle. The fact that you can solo this mission with Amara may be deliberate for a narrative reason, to communicate how powerful she's become now that she has this demon blade in her power. Even if that's the case, I don't care. It doesn't make the level better for me. It just makes it still very frustrating and not fun to play. And that's it. But my general thought is, I think it's pretty obvious where Frost Giant's strengths and weaknesses are. Storytelling, dialogue, general writing, I think those are the weakest part of the Stormgate campaign. I think gameplay, level design, visual design, I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's, at minimum, very technically competent. I think all of those are the strongest parts of Stormgate. In terms of the dialogue, a lot of it's not very good, a lot of it is bad. The emotional tone of the writing is all over the place, sometimes being goofy and silly, sometimes trying to be serious. The story overall, I didn't really talk too much about it, but it's just very cliche. And I know you shouldn't expect anyone to break the mold when they come up with a setting for a game that's basically humans versus demons versus,
I don't know, angels maybe?
but even so, even with that kind of unimaginative setting, I was still disappointed with how cliche and kind of unoriginal the story was. I personally think that instead of taking the story in kind of an epic high fantasy direction with destinies and magical blades and stuff, I think the story would work better if it was telling smaller, more personal stories of these characters going on smaller missions to try to weaken the enemy over time, doing what little they can to weaken the enemy over time. I think that would work better with the release structure and also just the general nature of the story. In terms of the visual design, I have no notes. I think it's fine. I think maybe a little bit more visual distinction among some of the units and some of the buildings, but otherwise I think it's good. And in terms of just the real-time strategy design, that's where the game really shines, I think. For the campaign missions, I would like to see more of those missions where you can capture this higher tier building with the temporary units you've been given. I'd like to see more stuff like that. I'd like to see more stuff like those NPCs you can save that become waves of soldiers that don't interfere with your own plans, don't interfere with your play style. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see a lot less lightning and tornado nonsense. I personally am on the side that says there should be 0 boss battles and 0 no build missions in an RTS.
You all picked the wrong side.
But I know that there are people out there who do enjoy boss battles and no build missions in real-time strategy. Fair enough. So I'll just say I hope there's fewer no build missions and fewer boss battles in future campaign levels.
Good point.
I haven't played much PvP or co-op in this version of the game, so I can't really comment on it. Most of my free time after the game was released was trying to make this video, and I don't have a lot of free time, so it's just taken a while. The only thing I will say about co-op is what is up with this celestial co-op commander. What is this character design? Is she a royal jester in the court of the Galactic King? What is going on here? Is she wearing spoons on her eyes?